What's up, everybody? Chad Ferguson here, Catfish Edge, and this is 5 winter catfishing tips to help you catch more catfish. So let's get started. So I'm out here today doing some fishing on the Sea Arc Pro Cat 240. It's just a miserable winter day today. Just cloudy, dreary, windy, cold. We've got the enclosure on the Pro Cat here, got the heater running so we can stay nice and warm inside. And we've caught some really good fish, and I've seen a lot of people out running around today doing different things, different techniques, trying to catch catfish, and want to cover these tips that'll help you in the wintertime to put more fish in the boat. Number one is that a lot of people really get locked in on fishing spots. I've talked about this a lot in the past. You know, they go because they've seen somebody else catch fish in an area before, or because they've caught fish in an area before. They really focus in on that one area and they really just hammer that over and over and over again and don't get results from it because the fish have moved. And this time of year, the fish will really move around a lot and cover lots of different water. Now, once you find a good general depth each day that the fish are holding in, for the most part, they're usually going to stay in that depth, but you can't fish spots in the cold weather. You got to get out there, use your graph, find those fish on your side imaging or your down imaging, and really hone in on where those fish are holding and fish those areas where you find active feeding fish. Number two is to really pay close attention to water temperature. A lot of times when it's really cold, especially when you get warm bluebird days where the clouds clear, sun comes out, you'll find where there's drastic changes in water temperature on the surface. Deep water, shallow water, everything in between, that water's going to warm up really quickly when there's not much wind and the sun comes out and the clouds go away. And a lot of times you'll find fish making big moves during the day when you have those warm bluebird days, even up into shallow water. And a lot of people discount that shallow water in the winter, but it's a great place to catch lots of fish and catch some really big fish. So pay attention to water temperature, especially on those bluebird days. Look and see what the fish are doing and get out there, use that sonar to find them. Don't be afraid to go outside the box a little bit and try something new. You might be surprised what it is that you find. Number three is fresh bait. Now, winter is one of the more difficult times for a lot of people to go out there and catch bait. It definitely requires more work. It requires more effort to make sure that you stay in fresh bait and that you can keep that in the boat. But if you will put the effort in, it will pay huge rewards. Fresh bait is always going to be best, and it is hands down the best option when you're fishing in cold water. When water gets cold, scent doesn't travel as far. And when you freeze baits, not only do they get mushy and you have all those problems that you have with frozen baits, but frozen baits don't put off as strong of a smell. They don't have as much amino acids on the surface of them and oil in them still. All sorts of problems come with freezing those baits. And when it's cold and scent doesn't carry as far in the water, then that can be problematic. So fresh bait is always going to be your best choice when you're fishing in the winter. Hook size and bait size are critical. That's really one thing you want to pay close attention to in the wintertime. I find a lot of people fishing in cold water really want to get locked down or get focused on using really, really big baits. You need to put whatever the fish are feeding on in front of them, and that doesn't always mean big baits, whether you're fishing for big fish or little fish. Sometimes smaller baits are just as productive or more productive than the big baits. Pay attention to that bait size. Look at what those fish are feeding on when you're driving around looking at that sonar. You can usually tell if they're feeding on little shad or big shad, and put out the bait that they're feeding on to catch the most fish. Pay attention to your hook size as well. Make sure, especially if you're fishing for big catfish, you want to really go with a larger hook for those bigger baits. Make sure you're leaving that hook gap open. I like the 10-aught triple threat from Whisker Seeker, but sometimes we'll downsize into an 8-aught. But the thing to keep in mind when it's cold, especially if you have a real big cold front come through. Sometimes you have to downsize those baits and downsize the hooks because the fish will get real finicky with those big fronts coming in. And sometimes really going down in bait size and hook size can make the difference between fishing and catching. Now, number 5, last but not least, and this is a very important one, is to slow down. When the water's cold, metabolism really slows down and they won't chase baits in a lot of cases. So you really want to make sure that you're paying attention to how you're presenting those baits. Whether you're drifting, trolling, fishing on anchor, suspend drifting, you name it, you want to make sure that you're really taking your time and really presenting those baits slowly in front of the catfish, because sometimes you almost have to knock them in the head with those baits to get them to bite, especially when it gets colder. The colder it gets, the more you need to slow down, the more you need to take your time and really put a lot of effort into making sure that you're covering the water, that you're really taking care to present those baits and get them really precisely placed in front of those fish, and you'll get more bites. So that's it. Those are 5 winter catfishing tips to help you go out there catch more catfish. Make sure you subscribe, hit that thumbs up button, leave a comment down below. Let us know if you have questions, anything else at all. I'll be back next week with another video. Until next time, Chad Ferguson, catfishedge.com.